So I worked for years to build my small business. And I really don't think that if you have never been through the process of building a small business, you understand the work that goes into it. Not only the time and the money and the labor, but also the emotions that go into it, where you are betting everything on the fact that you can make this work. And most small businesses don't work out. And so it is a lot of times when I was building my business, and I built it part-time over the course of 3 years before I finally went full-time with it and took that leap. There were months after I went full-time with it, I didn't know how I was going to get paid, and I had to figure it out. Or I was worrying about having the money to pay our insurance before my husband got a job that had benefits, or all of these things. It is a constant strain. You're working long hours. You are putting everything you have into that small business. And what I wish the little socialists that are off supporting Bernie Sanders and who have the Twitter rose in their profile would understand is that it is a struggle every single day when you're building a small business. And when you have mommy and daddy paying for everything, or you have mommy government paying for everything, you don't understand that. You cannot understand what it's like until you actually do it. So when I saw this article pop up on my news feed today, honestly, my heart absolutely just sunk. I completely identify with small businesses that through no fault of their own, because of this pandemic and these stupid lockdowns that the Democratic governors are mostly Democratic governors are continuing to enforce, even though we now know that this virus is really not that dangerous for people who do not have comorbidities or of a certain age. We have a much better handle on this than we did back in February. My heart just sank for the 60% of business closures due to the coronavirus pandemic that are now permanent. Just think about that for a second. Of the small businesses that closed during the pandemic in your community, 60% of them are never going to come back. You know, I am incredibly lucky. When the pandemic happened, frankly, a lot of my work for my business not only got shifted to next year, but I also had this YouTube, locals, this content creation that I frankly lucked my way into, wasn't even trying to do, and then all of a sudden one day was doing it. And I'm so grateful to all of you every single day that I didn't have to start frankly like grifting with my business, because I mean that's absolutely what would have happened. It's absolutely what would have happened. And I thought about this a lot. You know, when the pandemic first happened, I launched a program on how to manage employees virtually and get them set up in a virtual working environment and that sort of thing. And that was fine. But really in my head at that point, I was like, if I can't support myself doing my normal training regimes, which are all about in-person training, in-person facilitations, that just isn't happening right now. Or being able to create virtual programs that companies actually want to buy, which has my industry has blatantly been thrown on its head with all of this anti-racist stuff that I refuse to do. Like, I would have been, if I didn't have YouTube and locals and all of this stuff and the support of so many of you, I honestly think that I would have been shamelessly shilling programs that I did not want to do in my business for the sake of paying my mortgage, simply because that was the reality I was living in. And and most people, the vast majority of people do not have this option. And so I just want to say, before we read this article, I am so incredibly grateful to every single one of you that has subscribed to this channel, every single one of you that's joined my locals, maybe makes a financial donation to support this work, or any other thing, buys a piece of merch from my store. Honestly, guys, you all have saved my sanity from having to shill programs that I didn't believe in for the sake of making money that, you know, I'm sure they would have been fine, but it just wouldn't have been my favorite thing to do in the world. And I get to do this with you now instead, which is awesome. But most businesses are not that lucky. And let's go ahead and look at this article and see what they have to say. Yelp on Wednesday released its latest economic average report, revealing business closures across the U.S. are increasing as a result of the coronavirus pandemic's economic toll. As of August 31st, 163,735 businesses have indicated on Yelp that they have closed. That's down from 180,000. However, it actually shows a 23% increase in the number of closures since mid-July. But more importantly, in addition to monitoring closed businesses, Yelp also takes into account that the businesses where closures have become permanent. That number has steadily increased throughout the past 6 months, now reaching 97,966, representing 60% of closed businesses that won't be reopening. And let's just keep in mind that there are a metric ton of businesses out there that are not on Yelp, that are not reopening, that are not coming back, that are not included in this. And if I were to bet money, I would say most of the businesses that are not on Yelp are little mom and pop shops, little small businesses. Like my business isn't on Yelp. I never had any reason to be on Yelp. And so how many businesses created, cultivated, fostered by members of your community are not coming back because the Democrats have an interest in prolonging the economic shutdown in order to win an election? If this doesn't piss you off, I'm sorry, folks. I just don't think you have a whole lot of humanity left. The September report marks 6 months since March 1st, the date the Yelp considers to be the beginning of the business crisis. In order to gain closure data, Yelp monitors changes in business hours or descriptions on its app, offering an immediate localized impact view of the impact the pandemic has had on small businesses. Despite the hard hits small businesses have certainly taken, we've seen that home, local, professional, and automotive services have been able to withstand the effects of the pandemic. So we're seeing here which businesses are doing okay and which businesses have more closures. So things like food trucks, men's clothing, gift shops, breakfast and brunch locations are getting hit the hardest. But the other thing I want to talk about in this that is something, we can see that, there's some businesses that are more suited for it. Bars and nightlife venues have seen a large impact from the pandemic, or businesses that can't adapt easily to outdoor dining. But let's focus in on retail for a second. Retail saw a similar increase in permanent closures since July, rising 10% to the total of 58% indicated permanent. That's out of 30,374 closed retail businesses. Those retail businesses are small businesses. They're not large businesses. The Democrats are the little socialists that don't understand what it means to work. They like to talk about wealth redistribution, right? We got to take from the rich who have all this money that they didn't earn. They only earned it on the backs of the workers and give it out to people who actually need it. Well, there is a wealth redistribution happening, but it's not going from rich to poor. It's going from poor to rich, and I'm going to prove it. According to Reuters, Walmart beats on profit, posts record online sales on pandemic boost. According to MarketWatch, Target reports record-setting quarterly profits and comparable sales, $5 billion in market share gains for the first half of 2020. And according to Digital Trends, Amazon posts record-shattering profits thanks to pandemic sales. The economy has shifted from one where small businesses had a chance, people went out of their way to support small businesses in their communities, to everyone buying online from one of the major box stores to the detriment of your community. Now, I shop on Amazon as much as the next person, but do I think that it's okay that places like Walmart, Target, Amazon, all these big businesses are the ones that are entirely benefiting from this economic shutdown while mom and pop stores are closing permanently? They're done. Through no fault of their own. They maybe had a thriving business for years or decades. They put their blood, sweat, and tears into those businesses. And then one day, the government says, you are not allowed to open. Wow. I mean, this is the reality in which we're living in. Hundreds of thousands of small businesses are never coming back because the Democrats want to win an election. It didn't need to be this way. This all started as 15 days to slow the spread. That was the entire point. And now it has become, let's close down all of the economy and require everyone everywhere to wear masks until there is a vaccine. How did it get here? Like, people have lost their minds and they have lost their perspective. And I'll tell you this too, guys. When small business closures go up, guess what else goes up? Suicide rates, divorce rates, domestic abuse. All of these things are linked with recessions or small businesses closing, because when you put your life into something, when you put your life into a small business, everything you have, your time, your money, your energy, your heart, and all of a sudden someone tells you you can't do that because the government does not approve, I think a lot of people are going to be angry and they're going to feel as though their life's work was robbed from them by the government. And if you don't know that the Democrats are the ones doing this, I'm sorry, you haven't been paying attention. You haven't been paying attention. The Democrats are now the party of the rich. The Republicans are the party that actually care about working people. And the only way to put a stop to this is to vote for Trump in November. That's the only way, because what has Biden said? These are the two policy positions that I actually know Biden has. I have no idea what Biden stands for except for these two things: mandating that everyone wear a mask and shutting down the economy again. That is what Biden has already said that he would do if he wins this election. You all have got to get out and vote. You've got to get there in person. You have to make sure your ballot is counted. Otherwise, we are simply our own worst enemy. All right, guys, that's all I've got for this one. I'll see you soon.